Good morning. Welcome to our first session of the day at AFM Online. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Festivals, Markets, and Streaming in the New World, which is presented by Filmocracy. Please welcome our moderator, co-founder and CEO of Filmocracy, Paul June.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to make sure that I have all my speakers coming up on stage, but while they do that, I will introduce each of them. So first we have Justin Giddings. Justin is a classically trained actor who got tired of waiting for permission to be creative and turned to filmmaking to continue his exploration of the human condition. His films have won multiple festivals around the globe and have received international distribution with companies like Gaiam TV and Gunpowder and Sky. He's also an international speaker and teacher on crowdfunding, having raised over $6 million for indie film projects through his company, the Kickstarter Guy. He is also the co-founder of Film Festival Mastery, a training program for filmmakers seeking to optimize their film festival experience. And just a side note, he also helped Filmocracy with our Kickstarter campaign way back when. Next we have Chris Gore. Chris is the publisher of filmthreat.com and host of the Film Threat podcast, the author of several books, most notably the Ultimate Film Festival Survival Guide. Chris is also a filmmaker and TV producer, having written and produced My Big Fat Independent Movie. Chris has also appeared as a film expert on MSNBC, E! Network, CNN, and has hosted shows on FX, Stars, IFC, and was a regular on G4 TV's Attack of the Show. Welcome, Chris. And we have John Fitzgerald. Prepare yourselves, this is a long one. John has 25 years of experience in the independent film, internet, and film festival communities. As a filmmaker, he's produced a number of award-winning documentaries, and as a consultant, he has guided many independent film projects through the maze of festivals and hybrid distribution models. As a co-founder of the Slamdance Film Festival in 1995, he led the event the next 2 seasons before being named the festival director for AFI. After running AFI for 3 years, he created a consulting business, guiding the launch of numerous film festivals like Bahamas, Lone Star, Orlando, and directing several others like Santa Barbara, Naples, and Abu Dhabi, and consulting for dozens more. In 2012, John authored his first book, entitled Filmmaking for Change, Make Films That Transform the World, and in 2015, John founded Cause Cinema, connecting audiences with social impact films, with blogs and podcasts. And in 2019, John founded iGems TV. As a guide to engaging movies and series, iGems recently added a pro division in 2020 to provide resources and a directory to assist filmmakers with festivals and distribution. Welcome, John. I'm out of breath. I think we should end the panel here. And last but not least, we have Lela Meadow-Connor, Executive Director of Film Festival Alliance and founder of Mama.Film, a nonprofit arts organization at the crossroads of art and advocacy, where storytellers, changemakers, and nurturers come together to champion women of all kinds and their allies. She's a co-founder of Wichita's Tallgrass Film Association, has consulted for various film festivals including Woods Hole and Gina Davis's Benton Film Festival. She has participated in the Artists Inc. program through Mid-America Arts Alliance and the Industry Academy, a program of Film Society of Lincoln Center, and the Locarno Film Festival. She currently serves on the board of the Vidiots Foundation and as co-producer on Sav Rogers' forthcoming documentary, Chasing Amy. Or is it Chasing Amy? I'll let you correct that later. Sorry about that. And as executive producer on Nitzen Mager's web series, Quarantine, I Love You. Welcome, Lela. And I'm sure John will join us as soon as he has the chance.
Saw that he left the room, and he'll get back in.
No problem. So, welcome everyone. Some of my favorite people here. But why don't we just jump into it, because we have a lot of knowledge to share in so little time. So I'm just gonna start with some questions. I have questions for each of you, but we'll just let it flow and let the conversation go naturally. So my first question is, with so many smaller films and so many similar virtual options, though digital cannot replicate the live screening experience, Can networking still take place and be productive for industry professionals and filmmakers? Lela, this is a question for you. What do you think about all the different virtual options out there and whether it's a close facsimile of the live experience?
I think that while there have been lots of successful virtual festivals that have happened this year and are happening right now, that's one of the hardest things to replicate is that in-person networking experience. I've seen some festivals do it really well and others have struggled with it. But I think that that is probably the biggest missing piece of the puzzle in this sort of virtual world that has been quite successful.
If anybody wants to jump in, it's not just for Lela, it's just kind of like the jumping off point. Go ahead, Chris.
I would say, first of all, Paul, I echo your point about so many great indie movies coming out. I think now that the oxygen is sort of pulled out of the room with all these big, Hollywood tentpole blockbusters being pushed to later in 2021, there are so many more options. People notice like, hey, there's a lot of great indie movies out there. Everything from documentaries to small indies. I just saw this really good indie film the other day called Love in Dangerous Times, which is a romance set and shot during the pandemic by a filmmaker named John Garcia. Great film. I wouldn't have known about that, I think, if I wasn't so obsessed with the incessant marketing from Hollywood, right? Wonder Woman 84, the latest Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, Disney franchise crap that we see so often. Now that that oxygen's kind of pulled out of the room, hey, the dust is settled. Like there's a lot of really great indie choices out there. I think the issue is a couple things. One, in order to make good decisions and see where things are succeeding, we need data. As much as we can tout like this thing was a success, by what metric? And I think that that's where some sharing of data from film festivals, I'd be curious about their data. I know, for example, AFI-Fest limited the number of people that could attend a virtual screening, so to speak. So I'd like to see some sharing of data, both from virtual cinema and from from film festivals, to just see what's working, what's not working. What are the popular films, what aren't? I mean, we were so used to, for years we've been used to, and I don't believe that this is the metric we should all abide by, but box office, right? What was number one at the box office? My mother, who lives in Michigan, knows what the number one movie at the box office is. I always remind her that doesn't mean it's a good movie. But it's a part of a decision-making process, and it's really for Hollywood a way to market. I think what we need is good data, and we need data about how virtual cinema is performing. And even the streaming services from Netflix to Disney Plus, they've been very reticent about sharing data. They can lie and just make things up, right? Like they can just they don't have to tell us the truth about how well something performed. I think there's a lot of question about whether Mulan really was a success or not. I'm told they did about what? 1 million people bought the $29.99 upsell for Mulan on Disney Plus. So I think, I guess what I would stress is sources of data, disclosing that data so that people can make good choices from a business standpoint. And then additionally, and I want to talk about this in more detail later, but about some streamlining of the process. I've attended many virtual festivals. I've also been to drive-ins. I've been going to the drive-in every week. I've not stopped going to the movies. I just go to the movies in my car. I think that there's got to be some streamlining of the process so that virtual cinema can become a thing as ubiquitous as, any other types of purchases. I think Apple, when you look back, one of the genius things they did that transformed the music industry was 99 cents a song, right? There's no standard for these things. And having attended many virtual events in terms of film festivals, everything is different. And I find it, even this morning, there's a little bit of confusion. John showed up late. If it was in Santa Monica, he'd had trouble parking, but that's okay. I guess what I'm saying is data helps, and we need sources of data for decision making. And I'm happy that Hollywood has pushed their big blockbusters to next year.
Can I just add to that about the data collection that both with John and separately, Film Festival Alliance is undertaking a very comprehensive survey for both film festivals operationally with filmmakers and with audiences, so that we'll have some of that comprehensive data from festivals across the country.
I think that, like, the weekend box office numbers are ubiquitous, right? It just comes out every week, or we were used to it at least previous to March, right? So we need like that credible weekly, this is #1 in streaming, this is trending. We know, if you've watched The Social Dilemma, how those things can be tweaked, right? Those algorithms, but we really need real data. That's how Hollywood makes its decisions, based on, what's big at the box office. So I think we need that central source. I'd love to see that when it comes out, and actually have it be reported on a weekly basis. The source we could go to. Maybe your newsletter, John. That would be great. You could all publish it. We could put it on the Film Threat website. Something where people can have some metric that can help influence some good decision making.
Yeah,
well, from a filmmaker's point of
view, what Lela was just saying, that the first preliminary report is actually done, and it should be coming out later this week. So we'll definitely make sure everybody can find it. But just to add to that, the idea is it's more than just film festivals and filmmakers. It's also the distributors, right? So it's getting feedback from all of them and making sure that they're all weighing in, because frankly, as I think we're going to talk about soon, it's kind of blurred the lines on digital distribution, right? Because festivals are essentially becoming distributors in a way, if they're doing it right.
One of the other pieces of data that we're hoping to collect are box office grosses for filmmakers who are playing festivals. So festivals can share that information with filmmakers, so they can know, okay, at X, Y, and Z festival, my film grossed, this much, or had this many views. And that's really important data for those filmmakers to have.
Hugely. Yeah, as a filmmaker, I've got 2 films on the festival circuit right now, and that's what's killing me is the lack of data, like everybody's been talking about. Like, I would love to know which film is doing well, where it's doing well, because I think, John and I talk about this a lot. Actually, Paul, you and I too. Like, I think filmmakers have to have a more entrepreneurial mindset, and having those like KPIs, right? Knowing how your film is doing in this market that is no longer so linear, I think is going to be really, really important for the savviest of filmmakers to get their voices heard.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And since we're talking about filmmakers, when there's tens of thousands of film festivals around the world, and applying to festivals as easy as just going to Film Freeway, how should filmmakers be deciding which festivals to play at? Like, should they expect any special treatment in a virtual environment, and can being a premiere expect to change things for them?
Yeah, I think the main thing to start with, and John and I talk about this a lot with our coaching, is like, it used to be like, I better get into Sundance, or I better get into South by, or nothing matters. And I don't even think that was true then, but it's now doubly true, or untrue, I guess, which is that you don't need those. Like, that is not the metric of success for film. Doing the research and figuring out where your film is going to connect with its most target audience will give you a much better chance of having a more successful festival run than necessarily just getting into a big name. Because what often happens is people get into the big names and they don't know what to do with it. So it's like they have a cool laurel on their poster. They have an amazing laurel on their poster, but without really knowing how to maximize that and leverage that to move that forward and to connect with the audience, great, you've had a movie show up at a really cool festival, and then it kind of dies and the life cycle doesn't really go anywhere. Whereas you can, if you do that research ahead of time and you align your movie with its goals and you align your movie with its target audience, that will actually propel your film often to those bigger festivals. But regardless of what tier of festival it goes to, it'll still be connecting with the audience that is going to care the most, and that can be impressive for distribution afterwards. It can also be sort of the best networking. Like, you can actually really start to build your audience. I had a sci-fi that we did that, and we eventually were on Dust's platform, Gunpowder and Sky's sci-fi short distribution platform, on SVOD and YouTube and a bunch of other places. And now we've got another sci-fi out. We've already got to deal with them. Like it's already happened. We're just waiting for the festival thing to end, and then we have the exclusive premiere with them. And that's because we didn't just take our, small budget and only apply to the, banner marquee festivals. We applied to the film quests and the like smaller boutique sci-fi film festivals, got into them, won them, and now we have an audience and we have a in the sci-fi distribution world. So yeah, I think filmmakers get caught up on those big laurels, and it doesn't help.
One of the things that Justin and I talk a lot about is the idea of really starting with the goals, right? Because the truth is, a lot of filmmakers are playing festivals because they want to network and they want to advance their careers, and then the other filmmakers are just trying to get their movies out in front of audiences. And so I do think that you kind of have to come back to the goal thing. And something Chris and I talked about years ago, Chris, remember in San Diego, we were talking about the idea, and you could speak to this, Chris, probably better than I, but it's not just about trying to sell my movie or networking, quite honestly. In some cases, if you're trying to build an audience, playing as many festivals as you can, as long as they're credible and they can get anybody to come to the festival and see it. It's like a marketing vehicle. It's like seeding your audience. And so, maybe Chris, you could talk about that a little bit, because I know you're a big fan of that. People get too hung up on the top 10 or top 20, and it's just, I think, wasted energy.
Yeah, John, I agree. I remember that conversation, most of it because it was over drinks. But I will say this, that I think that people get too caught up in like it's the Sundance, Toronto, South by, and those are all great festivals. But there's a different pathway for success for any film. And Justin, I like that you pointed out there's all these small genre festivals that are very supportive of genre indie work. I'm a huge fan of indie sci-fi. I think it's where ideas really thrive, whereas Hollywood tends to be obsessed with spectacle, right? But yeah, no, I do think in a way, because when my Big Fan Independent movie was on the festival circuit, we played 40 festivals. It was like a limited theatrical release in a sense, right? I mean, if you're opening in New York and LA, you're four-walling a theater to get those critics reviews in those markets. I mean, you'll get value out of playing 40 film festivals, maybe playing one of those cities, right? Like, I just don't think that it's important to the success of a film now that we've sort of been forced into virtual festivals and virtual events. I think it's brought to light all these other opportunities to promote. It is going to be interesting to me because I don't know that. I think Justin, you mentioned this, that getting into Sundance is as important as it used to be. I mean, quite frankly, right? It's just not, because there's so many other choices and so many other pathways. I mean, by all accounts, this movie I previously mentioned, Love in Dangerous Times, could have been at Sundance, but it doesn't matter. So I like that there are a lot of choices. I'm curious to see who will rise to the top in terms of a virtual event, right? They're having gone to a bunch of these, I'm seeing different ways of doing things. I really like the way this AFM event has been put together. But I'm really curious to see from the filmmaker's perspective, taking a movie out virtual, how that's different. Having spoken,
I see it.
Yeah.
I see a comment, that's talking about the smaller laurels and selling your films with a sales agent, and then that's probably true for larger films. But I mean, I think for the majority of films that are playing the festival circuit, they're small independent films. And the way that you're going to get your audience is exactly what you have both been saying, is by playing regional festivals all over the country. And you can't discount the fact that you made your film for people to see it, right? So if you want people to see it, play at festivals, all over the country that have a huge following, and they wait every year for their film festival to come to their city to bring them these amazing independent films from around the world. I think that's why these virtual festivals, especially the regional ones, have been so successful, because they are the tastemakers in their community for independent film. And so, if your goal is to get your film seen, play those festivals. If your goal is to sell your film, do something different.
Yeah, can I just add something, Paul, before we jump to the next question, just because I think it hasn't really been said yet. But one of the things I keep hearing is this idea that if you're going to a virtual festival, that you're missing out on the networking opportunities that you would normally have with live events. And while I totally agree with that, and you know, Chris and I having drinks in San Diego was awesome, but the truth is, there are networking opportunities at some of these festivals. I think it's just being able to tap into the right festivals, right, that are having virtual opportunities where you can do happy hours, even if it's via Zoom or Remo. There are opportunities. It just takes a little bit more research now on the filmmaker side to know which festivals are creating those experiences. And we'll talk more about it later. Chris just mentioned, you know, which festivals are going to create these experiences. And I think what Paul's doing with Filmocracy, and he's working with a lot of different festivals now. We're doing one in December, and it's going to have this virtual opportunity to connect. And it's not going to replace what you used to have, but it is an opportunity to connect and advance your careers and meet people that you wouldn't otherwise meet.
Yeah, this online festival thing is changing and disrupting the industry a lot. And obviously going online gives a wider reach to local and regional festivals once limited by geography. But what isn't often discussed is the possibility of wider accessibility leading to bigger festivals taking an even larger share of the audience pie. If I live in Kentucky, sorry Justin, and I have one virtual festival I can go to, I probably might decide to go to virtual Cannes instead of virtual Kentucky Film Festival. And this is also starting to overlap with digital distribution, obviously. So maybe I'll kick it to you, John, since this is a topic you and I have talked about ad nauseum.
Yeah, well, I think there is a difference in kind of marketing and distribution. And I think, you know, one of the things that I think we're all grappling with now is, I mean, some of these festivals have had, like AFI doubled their audience virtually this year. That's a big deal. But AFI is a brand that everybody knows, or I should say most people know. If you're a small regional festival in Ohio or Kansas, I mean, to try and go virtual and expand your audience, assuming you don't have to geo-block to your community, that can be a challenge, right? Because you have to think about marketing in a different way. And I think when it comes to distribution, you know, one of the things that Lela and I talked, I think Paul and Justin and I talked about this too, is the whole distribution thing is a little wonky because it's the word doesn't cover all the bases. And I think when you're a filmmaker and you're trying to secure distribution, if you do a deal with Sony Classics or one of the mini majors, they might want to keep you from playing certain festivals because they have a release plan. They want you to get promotion right before they're released because it obviously they get a percentage of the ticket sales. But if I'm an independent filmmaker and I'm trying to generate as big an audience as I can, it might help me to play more festivals. But what if festivals actually, and this is something I guess we're going to talk about later, Paul, but the idea of revenue sharing, you know, this is something that didn't happen for most filmmakers. And I think we're starting to see more of it now. And it's something that Lela and I discovered in our surveys. Filmmakers want to get a piece. And I understand that festivals were spending their money on hospitality and air and accommodations. They don't have to do that now. So put some of the money back into the filmmaker's pocket. So in a way, if a film goes out and plays 10 festivals and does, 200 tickets per movie or something like this, and they get a revenue share, they can actually earn money on their festival run without being one of that top 5% that always gets their screening fees. So I do think there is a bit of an overlap that's gonna happen here, I think, with distribution. But I also think that marketing is going to become a key component, and festivals are going to have to rethink that a little bit.
I want to just add in that there are lots of regional festivals that attracted audiences from all over the world this year.
Yeah.
Like the Dead Center Film Festival in Oklahoma, they had a huge attendance and like tripled like their attendance from like around the country and around the world. So I totally disagree with the fact that regional festivals can't build their audience. I think they have a huge opportunity to do that right now, whether a film decides to geo-block to their region or to geo-block to the States. Like, people have friends everywhere. People are posting on Facebook, hey, I watched this film at, X, Y, and Z festival and you can too, and you don't live in the same community. So I disagree with that. I also disagree with the fact that if I was in Kentucky, that I choose to go to Cannes over my local film festival, because what do I know about Cannes? I mean, I'm not going to do that. relying on my local film festival to curate for me the best of Cannes, the best of Sundance, the best of South by, the best of Tribeca, and all those other independent films. So, you know, I just don't think that that's a problem for like the majority of audiences in regional communities. They want to watch these independent films.
Yeah,
As long as you can reach the communities. Some of those festivals understand how to reach those audiences outside their region, and some have only been catering to their region. So it's a new approach.
Yeah, Cincinnati. I'm now south of Cincinnati, and this independent film festival does a great job of just creating a lot of. They've sort of, in some ways, created a platform for local filmmaking to happen, a place for it to be celebrated. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. As it's so interesting to me when I hear like it's go big or nothing. I mean, John, we were talking about this. Like Sundance had like what 14,000 films submitted to them last year. The idea that only the ones that got in were any good and that people want to see is it's demonstrably not true. I didn't get into Sundance, and both of my shorts have been profitable from the distributor. Who has profitable shorts, right? Like it comes from knowing the marketing piece of it and building up the audience and leveraging that into good deals. Not me. I mean, I think the biggest festivals I'd say like Austin Film Festival, Newport Beach, like these are really respected, tier 2 festivals, you would say, right? If we were going to grade them. I didn't get those giant laurels, and yet I am able to, be profitable on short films. So I think part of what the virtual film festival thing is doing is it's actually giving us an opportunity to rethink how we show up in the world, particularly from like a TVOD situation. I just saw somebody in the comments talking about how like so many film festivals now are able to just do profit splits because the ticket service is setting it up to where like, hey, do you want half of this to go to the filmmaker? And you can like click a box, and there's a way to create like financial incentives there. And John and I, we train in Film Festival Master. We talk about like how in the old school ways, how you could generate sometimes many thousands of dollars in screening fees. It's just gotten easier now. So
I think
really want to push back against that old school, like, man, if you don't get in that top 10, your film's dead and we'll never make money and nobody will want to see it or buy it or care about
Well,
it.
somebody said it earlier, and it's something along these lines, but it's basically true. Film festivals and like art house cinemas are basically in the same playing field right now, in the virtual playing field. The thing is, the art house cinemas are playing films from distributors. The film and what is the return to the filmmaker? The film festivals are playing films that they have from filmmakers. They have those direct relationships with. And if a lot more film festivals are going to go this rev share route, is that maybe a better option for filmmakers than trying to find a distributor and not making your money back ever? I mean, it's something to think about where it's this level playing field now, and distribution has a real opportunity to change for independent film.
I think it's a great point. I'm really curious to see now that Pfizer announced that they have a 90% effective vaccine. Obviously, having to go through trials for safety and getting distributed, it's going to take a while for it to reach all corners of the earth. However, we're eventually going to be able to return to some semblance of normal life. But having had this experience and having spent day 300 of whatever 15 days to slow the spread, I wonder if now maybe there'll be a hybrid of, yes, Sundance will take place in Park City, but you'll also be able to attend virtually, meaning a virtual pass. And I think that we may look at a world where these things will coexist, because now we're looking at Sundance is going to be fully virtual in January, right? So when they actually, the following year in 2022, they'll have a physical live event, but I wonder if it just broadens their appeal to be able to do, if the virtual event and the physical live event can coexist. I would like to see some sort of hybrid of that. Your thoughts on that, everyone? Sorry to jump in, or maybe I jumped ahead, Paul. My apologies.
You did. You jumped the question for the end, but that's okay. We're here. It's a great topic.
It's top of mind for me. I'm sorry. Well, something we'll discuss. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so what do we think then about the future of festivals beyond the pandemic, and especially a year after stunted production? Will there even be enough films to program for all these festivals? And is virtual here to stay post-pandemic?
I think virtual will always be for many film festivals going forward, will always be part of their festival. The hybrid is a model that I think we'll see a lot of, hopefully by like Q3, Q4 of next year, maybe. But I think that festivals have realized that the opportunities that come with virtual, and not just for their own audiences. I mean, let's face it, the audiences that go to film festivals are often in the high risk category. So are they going to even want to go out and to the theaters once they realize that they can do all this from home? There's that portion of the audience, but growing their audiences around the country and world too is a real opportunity for them.
Another thing that I think we're going to see more and more of, and Paul and I are talking about this week, is the idea that, a lot of the festivals that I've done over the years, I've really pushed them to do cinema societies or film societies and having some type of an ongoing presence in their communities. And some of the smaller festivals, it takes a while for them to kind of ramp that up. And not all of them have decent staffs year round, and to produce events throughout the year and deal with sponsorships and all that, it can be tricky. But I think what we're going to see more and more of is, some of these festivals that are realizing, wow, I can do this virtual thing and not spend a ton of money, and I can brand myself throughout the year and reach out to new audiences. And in a way, I mean, we all remember Tug and I guess Gather still breathing. This idea of creating releases around these movies in targeted communities. I think there's going to be an interesting hybrid model where you're starting to see, again, those lines blur between distribution and virtual cinema and virtual festivals. And like you said, the distributor, Marquee and Lemley and all these guys are doing this online element, which is great, I think. But if you have a number of films in that next tier that can be part of festivals that have a year-round presence, then these guys are showing much more movies. And I think Chris alluded to this in the beginning. It's like, this is actually a great opportunity for independent filmmakers. I mean, nobody's cheering on the pandemic, but the truth is, I think it's creating new opportunities. And it's just a question of who capitalizes on it and how these festivals evolve.
Well, yeah, as a filmmaker in the past, if my film got in somewhere, and I didn't live there or couldn't go there, I mean, it would be so hard to sort of market it. I'd be like, hey, if you live in Boston, you head on over to whatever film festival. And now it's like, no, here's the link to the tickets. Like, we can all watch it together. I can host little watch parties on Discord with my friends. And so it's like easier now to like drive traffic there because people don't have to be geographically located there to go. There's still geotagging. I mean, that's a whole other thing that we can talk about. So sometimes it doesn't play, but like I said, two films on the circuit right now. And I've had just so many more opportunities to get people to see those projects. So many more networking opportunities. Again, like I can only network if I can show up physically, but now there's like systems in place for me to engage with and network with other filmmakers and audience members because of necessity, right? They had to figure out a way to make that happen. And so now I get to take advantage of it. And apparently I've bored them and they've left.
But to your point about audiences, I think that's a really, that's something we also really need to be thinking about because, first at the beginning of this pandemic, everything was virtual and it was cool at first. And then we sort of just entered this like oversaturation period. But, there are maybe more opportunities to train audiences to learn how to watch independent film virtually than to convince them to go to their local film festival or art house cinema. Everyone knows what Netflix is and how to watch something virtually. So thinking about audiences and, I think that's a big part of this we can't discount.
Yeah, I think
just running along with that point. So if we are saying that hybrid models are here to stay and filmmakers are applying and then the film festival says, oh, we would like to have your film in our digital version, but not in our physical theater version. could that possibly preclude them from other film festivals that require you to not have gone online yet? And this sort of gets confusing between like, should I make that jump and like go to this festival as a digital option where some smaller festival might accept me as like a premiere in their theater? I think it gets kind of weird.
I think that we're going to see a lot of sea change in like premiere status and things like that happening in the future. I think that for a lot of festivals that maybe used to care about that, maybe not the market festivals, obviously, but a lot of big regional festivals are not so concerned about that anymore. And I think that, you know, people are willing to play, at least the festivals who are members of the Film Festival Alliance are, you know, willing to knowledge share and play together and try to work this through so that it's beneficial for both the filmmakers, the festivals, and all of their audiences.
Yeah, and I would just add to that real quick, just the idea that, you know, these filmmakers, again, back to the goals question, right? Some of these filmmakers want to be out there, and they have to understand the difference between the distribution or the market industry festivals and what they can really do for them versus just getting exposure at some of these other festivals. And I think we're seeing some films that are going to play in Filmocracy that are world premieres, and they're not thinking about what other festivals I might be, you know, missing out on because of it. They're thinking, I want to take my film out into the world, and nobody knows when live is coming back to normal or what's going to happen with my theatrical. So how can I take advantage of opportunities that are presented to me? And I think to your point, Lela, I think festivals are getting that now. And the whole premiere thing is, it's not helpful. And I think some of the bigger distributors that are still kind of playing the heavy, I think that's going to change a little bit. And if they need to do it for the top 3% of the movies that they have to really control, then okay. But again, back to the goals with the film. If you're not going to sell your movie to Neon or A24, you know, what are the other opportunities for your movie?
I agree. Now, Paul, you know, speaking like about the rules and stuff, and Lela, I think, was getting into this as well. I think it's just going to change, like the necessity. Like, let's talk about distributors and the whole like kind of online thing. I get this question a lot with my whole crowdfunding side of my business, you know, and for a long time there was always this question: well, if I offer a digital screener to my backers, is that going to make it so I can never get distributed? And on paper, I understand why that was a concern. But as time went on, and I talked to distributors, and I've, you know, had 184 clients as of yesterday, I found out. Like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, crowdfunding is such an integral part of a large slice of indie film financing now that like distributors would be shooting themselves in the foot if they hamstrung that process by not allowing certain types of perks to happen. So there's ways to be creative about it, and I won't get too much into the crowdfunding land, but like there's ways to navigate that so that everybody's happy. And I think that's going to happen with film festivals as well. There's going to be certain rules that come into place where everybody gets what they need so that the ecosystem of filmmaking can continue to happen and thrive. Because if that doesn't happen or thrive, well, then distributors don't have movies to, you know, bitch about.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked a lot about virtual festivals being here to stay. But what can film festivals really do to stand out, to, you know, provide some more interesting programming, or is it, you know, some new feature that nobody has implemented yet? Do they have to become like a film and music festival and integrate virtual music concerts? Like, what is it? What do we have to do to stand out from all the different virtual options?
I really think it's just supporting the independent filmmakers and the story-driven film and continuing to showcase, you know, really amazing films.
I think actually, to add on to that, it's the thing we talked a little bit about earlier, which is creating opportunities for filmmakers to meet each other. And, you know, I don't know how much you guys have dug around this whole AFM thing, but they're using a lot of the Filmocracy technology and the Remo. I mean, creating opportunities for filmmakers to meet each other. I can't tell you how many filmmakers over the years have met at one of the events I've been doing and have gone on to make other movies together, you know? So it's not always about finding the distribution deal or access to industry professionals, although that helps, right? A lot of filmmakers want to know who's on your jury and who's going to attend panels, and they want to network and they want to advance their careers, but they love the idea of connecting with other artists. And so I think that the festivals that are using these new technologies and creating virtual happy hours and virtual experiences and networking, I think is really going to be important to a lot of filmmakers that are trying to move their careers along.
And somebody asked earlier in the chat, about the networking experiences. And I really do think that we'll start seeing different things coming in the spring festival circuit, because we've all just sort of managed to navigate through this year. And there have been some great things offered by many different festivals, some really cool things. And I think we'll just continue to see more of that creativity coming from these festivals, and ways to connect and network. But now that we've sort of been through a year of it, I think now festivals can focus on that more than just figuring out how to get all their films online and get everyone to figure out how to watch them.
Also, now we've had time to actually do a debrief. I mean, with putting on any sort of event, you want to do your post-mortem and see what you did right and did wrong, and that feedback is going to help going into a second year of this. So I actually think that the future for all of this is just very positive. Someone mentioned in the chat about drive-ins. Look, I think drive-in is a huge option. I think there have been pop-up drive-ins from everywhere from the Rose Bowl to Rooftop Cinema in Los Angeles. I think you're going to see more and more drive-in types of experiences. Beyond Fest actually put on their festival, which would normally be at the Egyptian. It was at the Vineland Drive-In on the east side in Los Angeles. So I think you'll see drive-ins become more and more important to the overall festival experience as well.
I want to see, yes, and I want to see film festivals get better at social media, but not just in terms of community engagement and building, but learn how to run an ad to sell tickets. It's not too terribly hard. I was at Dances with Films with 2 years ago, and I think I ran $100 basic Facebook ad. Now I do Facebook ads, but it was $100, and I was able to get metrics from the team, and it sold profited $200 or $300 from that ad spend. And I saw another comment that was local people don't really care about local film festivals. They're not really paying attention. It's great, run an ad within you can set up an ad that's show people within 15 miles of here that like sci-fi and horror films, or they there's ways to do that and not be too terribly expensive, and you will get a return on that spend. And if you do that long enough and you take care of the community side of social media, all of a sudden you're going to have a film festival that is profitable and building up its reputation and more audience members, especially now that they don't have to show up and put their butts in a seat. They can show up online and put their digital butts in a digital seat.
Somebody else mentioned that in the chat earlier. Should I spend my money on social or for a submission fee for a film festival? That would be a reach. And I think social is the way to go, because you are, now that you're playing festivals across the country, all you have to do is go and place a targeted ad. Otherwise, you'd have to hire a publicist, or you'd have to do all that reach to the local press yourself. How much easier is this for a filmmaker to just be able to do those targeted things by themselves? And then in coordination with the festival, figure out what things you have to tag and, hashtags to use. And festivals and filmmakers should be working together that way in this virtual world. And actually, even moving forward in a hybrid world, a physical world, it would work the same way.
So I want to make sure that we get to some questions because our Q&A portion exploded. So let's just try to, we don't all have to give our thoughts on every single one of these, so we can just try to get through them as quickly as possible. But the number one question we have is, how does one profit from short films?
I'll take that. Let's see the short version. Build up an audience ahead of time. So I always teach the moment I have an idea, I create a Twitter account and start building that thing up. Create up a large audience that way. Do really good targeting on your film festivals. Once you get into those film festivals, take that laurels, take that audience, and talk to the people who are distributing those things, Guy MTV, Shorts HD, and there's a list of 20 or 30 more, and negotiate that deal. Also, I do a lot of pay what you can screening. I took a book out of Louis C.K. before all the stuff went down book, which was, hey, here's the link. You can buy it for whatever you could pay. I've had people pay me $100 to download my short film. When the link, like the Vimeo is there, they can watch the actual film, but then they can get the digital DVD extras for pay what they can. Anywhere between 50 cents and as much as they want. I've had people give me $100, but usually it's somewhere like $5 to $10, which is a whole hell of a lot more than I'm going to get on Amazon for a view or even a purchase. I mean, I can keep going, but we're keeping it short, right?
Next question. In these pandemic days, what kind of changes are taking place in sales of films to distributors? Are MGs different, non-existent?
I could tell you from my experience, because I've had clients sending me emails asking me that very question, and there are a few distributors, and I'm not going to name them here, but there are a handful that will literally just send blasts out to any filmmaker that they hear is playing in a festival, and approach them with the opportunity of a revenue share or no MG, but we'll take your movie and we'll get it on iTunes, and we'll get it on Amazon, and we'll get it on Google Play, and they're like a new form of the aggregators, basically. And it's unfortunate because a lot of filmmakers that are just going down this road for the first time don't realize that some of these distributors aren't the most honest, and they're not paying anything up front, so they're going to tie this film up. And so I think it's really important that filmmakers do their homework and make sure that the distributors actually do some good for them. Otherwise, you're better off just, playing festivals and not getting into that wrong boat right out of the gate.
Thanks for that, John. So is there an independent data research commission in the works specifically geared to streaming content that can standardize reporting?
Yes, I would like to see that.
Yeah. We're working on it. Right, Lela?
I got disconnected, so I have no idea what just happened for the last 2 minutes, but yes.
It was incredible.
Well, the whole idea is that with the survey was to get feedback from distributors and filmmakers and festivals and try and come up with some standards and some new ideas about reporting and data that can help everybody.
Yeah.
I think somebody mentioned it earlier, the idea of capturing data. That I think Chris mentioned that, if the filmmaker can use some data from that festival about the audiences that were watching their movie, that can be really helpful, right? And it's not just the financial data, it's the other information that can come with it. So I do think that the data is going to be really important going forward.
I pulled up the Q&A because we lost Paul, so I'll do the next question. Can you envision a future where festivals partner up on a streaming service, issuing some films simultaneously live and digital, gathering data or viewer numbers, promoting local filmmakers, etc.? So marriage between streaming services and festivals, do we think that will happen?
I think you would see some festivals creating their own streaming services. I mean, Sundance already has one called Sundance Now, right? I mean, so that's an extension of their brand into a streaming service. So I think you could see some festivals creating or partnering with the streaming services. For example, after South by Southwest, announced the Friday before the event was going to happen that they canceled the event, Amazon stepped up, and on Amazon Prime, you could view many of the South by Southwest shorts and films on Amazon, which I thought was great for them to step up. So I could see some partnerships or some spinning off of those festivals into sort of a limited window to stream content.
I think the more niche as well, right? So like the Alters and the Dusts and the Shutters, I think why wouldn't they partner up with the Fantastic Fests and whatnot of the world? So
yeah, they're also I think it was called Nightmares. I'm not sure, but there was a festival recently that was like 5 horror film festivals that came together to do a festival. So there's also that kind of sharing on a platform, which could essentially become a channel year round as well. So I think like collaboration between festivals is something that we'll see a lot too.
Paul's back.
Am I back? Oh, I'm back. Sweet. Well, the top question is mine, so I will answer it. Paprika Leverton says, can Paul speak about Filmocracy and how he's able to pay viewers to watch on his platform and leave reviews? How does this work, and can you gather data from this platform? So, I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but Filmocracy is basically trying to help a lot of the films that struggle, whether they're struggling to get into festivals or getting distribution, and we're using gamification and rewards to do that. So not only are we paying filmmakers, we're also paying the users who watch your film. We're incentivizing them to watch your film, rate your film, and review your film, all using our currency, which is called popcorn. So a certain amount of popcorn is generated from each film that's watched, and you can, disperse that amongst different people. You can donate it to the filmmaker who made the film that you just watched. You can give your popcorn to somebody who writes a review that you found helpful, but it's all about the data. We're asking you to rate on a few different categories, more than just like out of 5 stars. We're asking you like, how is the plot, dialogue, cinematography? Because this is valuable data that helps us figure out who exactly is interested in your film and who might be interested in your type of work in the future. If I know that Chris tends to like, action movies that have, great dialogue but poor plot, that tells me all I need to know about him. So, it's all about the data, and we're trying to make it more, intricate and useful for all parties. But I'll just leave it at that. So, next question. Is it better to submit to a festival and then to a distributor, or to first look for a distributor?
Always better to go to the festivals first.
And that really depends on what the goal for your film is.
Yeah, like I agree with both. So with this newest sci-fi that's coming out, we want to do the festival circuit for all the reasons we've been talking about, the reaching the audience, all the stuff. And I've already got a distribution deal in place. And so we're thinking about the timeline of our festival, knowing that, okay, end of Q1, this is going to come out on Dust. And so what do we want to get into beforehand? Which festivals are still going to allow us to screen afterwards? So you can kind of put it all together. But yeah, I would always generally lean festival first and then distributor, because it also just gives
you raise the stakes too, right? If you play some festivals and you generate some buzz and you get some testimonials or awards, that can raise the stakes with the distributors and help you get a better distributor. And some distributors, again, as we said before, will try and come in and kind of scoop you off the table because they're building a library, and you don't want to be part of a library play. You want to be part of a company that's going to take you out and give you some TLC. And I think, yes, if you have, the next amazing movie that might, get nominated for Academy Awards or Spirit Awards or what have you, and you're in that top 1%, then sure, if the right deal comes at you right out of the gate. But more often than not, that's not the case. So if you end up with a smaller distributor, sometimes what they do is they want to micromanage you and control your festival run, and then they limit you from all the opportunities you could have, whether makers or meet other industry players or generate some marketing opportunities for yourself or for your film. So I do think you have to be careful, and that's where producers reps come into play, because a lot of filmmakers don't know how to navigate that themselves.
Yeah, I always think the festival route is the best way to go at the beginning if your goal is to increase the value of your film through reviews, awards and accolades, good word of mouth, etc. But it's also like if getting a distributor is not the main goal, it's getting the next gig, then distribution might be that pathway. I feel like the pathway to success for every filmmaker is always a completely different one. So you gotta know what you want for your next step, and then play to that.
And look at that pathway to be changing, because what happened in 2020 is not going to be what's happening in 2021 and beyond. Sure. So, pay attention to that, because things are going to be different.
Totally.
I don't know. I've been hearing about this mink coronavirus in Europe. It's very troubling.
I think something that Jeff said a few minutes ago is really important, which is that I think that we are entering into a new territory of distribution, and the lines are going to blur, and people are going to figure out how festivals can be more in the distribution game, as long as it's working hand in hand with their community and with their filmmakers. I think it's an exciting. There is some kind of watching from the sidelines that's going to have to happen, because there's a lot of people with great ideas that are going to start throwing things at the wall and saying, this is what we're going to do. But if they don't have a following or an audience or credibility, I think filmmakers are going to really have to look at who these companies are and what festivals have a reputation to begin with. If they're going to kind of pivot, move in this other direction, do they have the right team and the right foresight and the right audience base to actually make it real?
And I would also suggest to filmmakers, think beyond just the festival. If festivals are going to start doing virtual streaming year-round on their channels, you have a lot of opportunity. Go to your local festival, or does your film have a connection to a festival, or somebody in your film have a connection to a festival that's doing that? Say, hey, this has local talent in it. We can play it and do a rev share and do a Q&A and all that. I just wanted to say, at Film Festival Alliance, we started a thing called Film Festival Day, and we did a film. We played a 60-minute doc, which would have had a hard time finding a slot at a physical festival. And the filmmaker grossed over, the rev share was split between the filmmaker and the festival, and the total gross was over $15,000. And I think 30 festivals participated in that. So think about being innovative ways that you can, as filmmakers, approach festivals too. You have that opportunity as well.
Great.
Yeah, I think what gets overlooked sometimes is, it's a relationship. You're not just going to show up to a festival and expect like the red carpet treatment. Like, this is a long-term play. You need to get to know people, build that relationship, and continue to cultivate whatever you can together, instead of just like running around trying to get every single laurel that you can get. So we are wrapping up now. I just want to give everybody, like a quick 15, 20 seconds to say how people can find you, how people can follow you, maybe even like your social media handles or websites, things like that. So we'll go clockwise, starting with Chris.
So real quick,
and then we'll end the session.
Go to filmthreat.com. If you're a filmmaker who has a movie, we will review anything. You don't need to go through the screen of having a publicist pitch us. Just go to filmthreat.com. There's a button that says click submit. You can submit your movie to us for review. Our media outlet is Rotten Tomatoes approved, so we review your movie, it'll be on Rotten Tomatoes. We are at Film Threat on everything. That's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I am at that Chris Gore on everything. My personal Twitter is kind of nerdy and whatnot. I will say that once in March, when the first lockdown happened, we had a full YouTube studio where we did production and a podcast. We shut down our studio. We went fully virtual. And now we do daily interviews with filmmakers on our YouTube channel. And we've got a really good one today with the director of Coded Bias, which comes out, I believe, today. Just a plug for that film, which I thought was one of the best documentaries I've seen this year. Additionally, we do watch parties every Friday, and now we're also having them on Sundays. Every Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, we host watch parties on our YouTube channel, Twitch, Facebook pages. We get about 2,500 unique viewers. So if you're a filmmaker, you want to have your film presented to a wide audience and have them see it, and then we direct people to where they can purchase the movie and or see it on Amazon Prime, iTunes, whatnot. And the watch parties have really transformed a lot of how we do business. And thank you. It was just a pleasure to be a part of such an amazing panel. And listening to all you really, I don't know, it was great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us, Chris.
Okay, cool.
Sean,
so I guess the easiest way to find me is at igems.tv. My email is jon@igems.tv. And of course, Jess and I are doing our filmfestivalmastery.com courses helping filmmakers navigate the festival circuit. But we also have one for festivals, helping festivals move with this crazy pivot. So that's the easiest way. The other thing I'll just add is that iGEMS TV was created ultimately to help guide audiences to find quality content. And we just recently launched a pro division that's going to focus on films that are done and helping filmmakers navigate the distribution and festival world. So you could check out iGEMS Pro, which you can find at iGEMS TV. And thank you all for joining this panel. This is great. Thanks, Paul, for having me part of it.
Yes, you can follow the Alliance. I'll drop them into the chat, but follow the Alliance at FF Alliance. You can go to filmfestivalalliance.org. You can search up who our members are for those who are wondering, somebody asked about how do you know if festivals are real versus fake festivals? All of our festivals are vetted festivals. So if you're interested in looking at the list of festivals that are our members, you can join also as an individual member. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved. We're doing a lot of programming with and for filmmakers. And you can follow my own film series at Mama Film 1. And yes, the future of film is female. Yes, also being a mom is I'm the same way. So anyway, thank you, Paul and everyone for having me be a part of this panel. We're looking forward to continuing the conversations. We're hosting our first virtual conference in lieu of Art House Convergence, which is not happening in January, called FilmX. We'll be announcing that next week. It's basically a conference for virtual conference for film festivals and film exhibitors and art house cinemas. So look for that information coming soon too. Thanks again, all.
Thank you, Lela. Everybody else also, please put your social media and information in the chat as well, so people don't have to remember it.
Yeah,
and
so
now it's
all
you,
social
Justin.
media, Vimeo, everything, it's /Justin Giddings, so you can find me there. And then if you're looking to crowdfund, you can get a free consultation at thekickstarterguy.com, thekickstarterguy.com. And then, yeah, John and I, we run filmfestivalmastery.com, which is just designed to be a very comprehensive approach to not only getting into top-tier film festivals, getting into the festivals that are right for your film, but of course maximizing that experience once you do get in, and actually take advantage of that. So you can watch a free masterclass at filmfestivalmastery.com/masterclass, and I'll put all that down there. And yeah, this is like the most knowledgeable panel I think I've ever taken a part of. So really nice. I've connected with most of you in some ways in the past, but it was really an honor to be here, and I kind of felt fancy and special. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Justin, for your great smile.
Super.
So I will wrap it up. You can always go to filmocracy.com, find out more information about us there. I am at PaulJun10 on Twitter. I don't know who the other 9 are, but I hate them. And thank you to all of our esteemed guests. Anybody who's watching this recording and everyone who participated live, this was good stuff. All of the people that you see here, they are experts, the most knowledgeable people in their fields. So definitely take what they've said to heart and try to find them and connect with them and continue the conversation. All right.
Well, I just realized
yes.
that neither one of us really talked about Filmocracyfest, and it's I just threw the link in the chat, but I wanted to just add that the amazing technologies that you brought together with Filmocracy, we're putting into Filmocracyfest. It's in December, and so some of the things we've talked about here about not just creating amazing opportunities for filmmakers to find audiences, we've got some amazing films, but we're also doing a lot of panels and keynotes and creating these virtual worlds where people can go and meet during coffee time or happy hours or just joining into the panels. So I would just say it's an opportunity to, as Lela was saying, how can we create experiences here with the festival community? So hopefully we're gonna push the envelope a little bit with Filmocracyfest.
Looking forward to seeing you there. Sounds like fun.
It's gonna be pretty fun.
All right, we've run over time, so I'm going to have to end it now. Thank you all. Love you all.
Thanks so
go
much.
to the networking building if you want to talk
Good
more.
to see you.